September order. Thank you. We have item 1 and 2 are standard number. Item 3 is a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide any interested parties with an opportunity to express their views and concerns in accordance with OCGA section 36-67A-3C. Item 3A is to consider establishing tax year 2017 fiscal year 2018 ad valorem millage rate for the city of Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor and Council, and citizens. The state law requires that the city take into consideration on its millage rate, factor in what has been added to the digest based on reassessment of existing properties. That has been done and that has been posted and advertised. The state law also says that if a council wishes to keep its millage rate the same, or for some reason to increase it more, then it must have 3 public hearings to advise the public. That also has been advertised, and this is the first of the 3 public hearings. The administration is recommending to council that it retains the millage rate at 14.05 mils, which it has been for the last 3 or 4 years. And that follows along the policy that you all have determined that you are interested in doing. And with that, Mr. Chairman, just take public opinion. Council will not be voting on this until you may remember your special call meeting on Monday.
Is there anybody here who wishes to speak for this? Thank you. Anybody who wishes to speak against this? Thank you. This public hearing is now closed. Item 4 is items for review and discussion. Item 4A is Leisure Services Department.
Thank you, Mayor, for council. It's been a big day. We've been looking forward to quite some time. And I'm fortunate to have some of our arts commissioners here with us. What we're going to do, as opposed to reading 50 pages to you and doing a long version, I've come up with a short, condensed version that can help expedite the process. You should have been sent out the document in your packets, and what you would notice is a very thorough plan. We attempted to put something together that would give us a solid foundation and a roadmap going forward for our public arts program here in Perry. You will see our vision, different zones dedicated for art, suitable for art, some guiding principles, and some processes. This is our table of contents, and it lists in detail some of those items specifically. Now, what we did was we had some significant documents of influence. We first took our 2014 adopted strategic master plan for Perry. In that document is a Perry alternate transportation plan. Those 2 documents were very heavily relied on crafting of our master plan. We also went and researched other cities in Georgia who have been doing public arts and doing them well. City of Sewanee, Duluth, and Athens, Clark County were the 3 that we benchmarked with extremely close in creating this plan. We also relied heavily on our public arts survey. I presented this to you a few months back when it was calculated. We had 400 participants take part in our survey, and overwhelmingly it was found supportive. Some of the highlights that were pointed out in the percentages were citizens like what we're doing. They like what you've been doing for a while now. They just want to see more of it. The areas that they were particularly interested in were downtown, city parks, and our walkways, that being trails and accessible sidewalks, our alternate transportation plan. Overwhelmingly, 90% of the people who took this survey were in support of public art in all of its avenues. However, their choice of participation were for events like our music festival. Not so much as going out and building things, as more of enjoying things, taking part in festivals, concerts, extracurricular activities. Okay. What you'll see in the plan, this is one of many maps. This is our zones, and it is a overview. If you were to take the Perry Alternate Transportation Plan and fit it right underneath this map, you're going to see pretty much that everything coincides with our parks infrastructure, sidewalk plans, and our future accesses with other trails. It also highlights the downtown area, various intersections along thoroughfares that were mentioned in the strategic plan, and this sites that would be deemed favorable for some type of public art. Of our survey, these types below were the most popular kinds, things with murals, fountains, different floral garden type, and different types of sculpture with illumination and different types of views. We've already got some plans that are at work now where the master plan will be very helpful. This is a photo of our upcoming parks that we're working on right now, Heritage Park and JC's Park. Every red star would indicate a place for some sculpture. In particular, Heritage Park, we found to be the most favorable for some type of a sculpture walk, just to match with the theme of the park itself. That is going to be a passive park with music, amphitheater, different types of greenery, and they just fit together. It would be an ideal place to match with some of the things that you've seen in Sewanee and other places that have a designated sculpture walk. And then our other new parks, the gateway parks that we're working on, like JC's, we had already had some sites set aside that would fit nicely in with our plan being used to help determine who, what, when, where, and how goes into these facilities. 3rd Street Park as well, it's the other gateway park. And then recently with our playground revitalization projects that I shared with you, the sites that I visited also have a public art type aspect to them. If you go into these new modernized ADA facilities, all of the fun stuff that people like to play on out here. That, our future art here, it's time. We're building stuff, we're changing stuff, so we need to have something in place that will guide us with this vision that we want to undertake. Are there any questions?
When can we get started?
Yesterday. It is a lot to, it's a lot to read through. It is a robust document, but we really wanted to put our best foot forward and get it right the first time. And everything that we crafted in there, we tried to match as closely as possible to other things that have already been done in the city.
Which one of those sites, Kevin, are we going to put the large statue of the city manager in?
That's classified right now.
That wasn't shown.
We'll save that one.
Any other questions?
In answer to Phyllis's question, no. Unless there are any concerns, we plan to have this as a rollover coming to you tomorrow or resolution to adopt. And then we'll just go from there.
Speaking, it happened in like oh, boy.
Anything else? Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Item 4B, Economic Development Department, Perry Visitor's Guide Map. Smith.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, a couple of exhibits for y'all to take a look at. This is a project that the city has been working on with the Perry Area CDD and the Georgia National Fairgrounds and Agri Center for a little while now. You can see I've handed out an example of the type of document that we were working towards. It's my belief, and I think it's the belief of the CDD and the fairgrounds, that the city has long lacked a nice visitor's guide with a map and all that type of deal on it. Particularly one like this, it's very professional, very well done. And we have been discussing the possibility of having one of these created, printing a number of them, approximately 100,000 of them, and making them available through the various outlets here in the city, through our businesses, at the fairgrounds, and then with our state partners, like the Georgia Department of Tourism, which is the Georgia Department of Economic Development. I'm not sure what they're called these days. But basically what we've done at this point in time is we have consulted with a number of different firms in regards to producing this product for us. We have selected Burt & Burt. They're actually out of Macon. They completed this one here for the city of Macon, which are modeling hours after. And I have a couple of slides here to show you the type of document they're looking to produce. You can see that it's kind of fun. It's a 3D elevation of, it would be a 3D elevation of the downtown Perry. It will denote certain items, points of interest, public facilities, parking, all that type of deal. There will be space for advertising along the periphery here should businesses choose to participate in that. We actually explored the possibility of creating one that was free of advertisements, just offering it as a service. You know, the city wants to create this map for you, but it was very, very expensive. So we actually went along with the advertising option to make it a little bit more palatable for the organization participating and paying for it. On the flip side, you can see it has a couple of different maps too, as well, to bring people into the community. This is something that I think Mayor and Council have been focused on for a while now. You can see it in the wayfinding system we're currently developing. Bring people into the community, and then get them downtown, show them around, show them points of interest, keep them here for a while, keep them spending money, that type of thing. Also, it completes the city business directory. So while businesses may not be able to participate in advertising, all of our businesses will be listed on the directory portion of things. So obviously it's something that needs to be updated quite regularly. We're looking at doing this about once a year. And we have also discussed the possibility, and this is something that we're going to do. You can see they have two large advertisements here in the center of things. We're actually going to make this a space for community information. We want to provide information to the citizens, to visitors, in particular about, you know, who do I contact for this, who do I contact for that, what sort of city events and functions are coming up this year. So we can have something like the Dogwood, something fair, all that type of thing. It's sort of a really nice, succinct document to hand out to folks that's pleasing to the eye and provides the type of information they're looking for. Kind of going through what this takes, it is a big undertaking. They'll actually utilize an aerial photo of downtown Perry. They'll come in and they hand draw the total 3D elevation rendering. You can see they do a very nice job. Denote points of interest. We'll work with them in making sure that everything we want to see pointed out when maps pointed out. And then you get this. So it's a nice process. Again, we've been talking about it for a while now. We think it's finally time to do something. The time frame for this is rather lengthy. If y'all were to approve moving forward with this project, we could start it this month. We'll have something completed probably around February or so, and then we can go to print, and we can have something hopefully in place to hand out for the next Junior National Barrel Horse Racing Association deal next year. That's going to be a big point of this, is targeting those big events where people are going to be in town for a while, providing them with this information. You know, honestly, it's something we got to have. So the CDB has $10,000 budgeted towards this project, and we will be asking, well, I am asking this body tonight to provide an additional $9,860 to get the project done. Just, you know, again, prolific distribution. The fairgrounds events, welcome center, you know, we want to get these out to everybody. We want to get our name out there. We want to market the community. We want to provide information. Tourism is huge. I know you all understand this, but I wanted to reiterate how important tourism is to the state and to Perry. You know, all this type of stuff, which you really care about. In Perry, approximately 140 businesses are directly related to the tourism industry. These are the hotels, the restaurants, attractions, amusements, that type of thing. And these businesses employ over 2,000 people. So anything we can do to bolster that industry, to take advantage of the tourism industry that's here in the state, I believe we should be working towards. And again, a breakdown of the project budget, the document development, $6,000, the printing, $13,720 for 100,000 of them. And again, I'm asking tonight for $9,860 to get this project completed.
How does the advertising work to offset the cost? Do they sell the advertising?
They do.
And collect it?
They do.
And this is a cost that they're giving you, what they're going to charge you?
Yes, sir. The responsibility is completely on them to sell the advertising. Without the advertising, the document development portion of things, I think was going to be close to $20,000. So it was a significant cost difference. Again, we wanted to initially provide one that did not have the advertising, but it was expensive. And we also thought that, looking a bit more into it and thinking a little bit more about it, that this could be a good way for some of our businesses to get their name out there if they so choose to participate.
So, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Would they have to pay, would the business have to pay a price to get the advertising? Are we doing that?
Yes, sir. The business will pay an advertising fee, and again, that's completely in the hands of the people that put this together.
Is it just gonna be businesses downtown?
No, sir. It could be citywide participation.
But the map's only gonna be for downtown.
It is, but they could actually be denoted, they could still advertise, and they could actually be denoted on the back portions of things. See here? So, it's open to anyone that wants to participate, but I do think the downtown, the commercial core would stand to benefit the most from this.
And the listings will be all the city businesses?
Yes. Well, those will be all city businesses in the downtown, actually.
In the DDA.
We're gonna keep it to the district. So as you can see, it's gonna produce a quality product. This is something that we can get out there. We currently do not have anything really. Think about last week, when all of the hotels were full, there were tons of people in town, albeit under not so great circumstances. But this is the type of stuff that they were looking for. This is the type of stuff that we could provide it to all the hotels, to the restaurants, the businesses, because people are looking for information. We heard it from a number of different businesses. Is there someone that could provide information? Is there something I could hand out? We didn't really have a quality product to put out there.
Did I just hear you say though, this whole thing's gonna be limited to the downtown district? Because
The big 3D elevation is.
Okay, but the listing of businesses.
The listing of businesses, that will be also in the downtown elevation, yes, sir.
Well, my concern there is you've got tourists coming in to town, and they want to eat somewhere. Well over half of the restaurants in town are not in that downtown district, so then does it become a piece that's in some way swallowed?
It could, yes, sir. That's a valid concern. And I do believe, this is Megan's product. We gotta think about it that way. If there was some change that we needed to make, for instance, we wanted to provide community information. If we wanted to provide a listing of restaurants or hotels or other types of things like that, that could certainly be done. But, that's a valid concern, and I'm glad you said that.
Most of your advertising's gonna come from the restaurants on the interstate. Then you got basically 2 restaurants that might advertise downtown, possibly. But the
Sure.
vast majority of it's gonna come. The other concern I have is time sensitive. And you said you're gonna produce it every year, but
Gonna have to.
proof of, the problem is these things become outdated very, very quickly. And we had a number of tourists downtown this week looking for the coffee cup. They've been told that that was the local coffee place now to go down there from Pasofino. But they got down there and it was closed. And so when you have the turnover of businesses, if you don't keep them updated fairly often, then they become way outdated.
Sure, and that was a big concern moving forward with this. Initially, the fairgrounds indicated they would like to receive about 150 of these, 150,000 of these. So we took that back a little bit, and we thought 100 would be good. The responsibility is going to be on the CDB for getting these in the hands of the events when they come into town, working with the fairgrounds, and making sure that a copy is included in all the registration packets and that type of stuff. So 100,000 sounds like a lot. It's definitely something we have to stay on top of, but y'all know how many folks come out of the fairgrounds every year. So we think we could absolutely cycle through these on an annual basis at the 100,000 figure.
Well, there's no question about that. If you take the fair out of it, you've got 500,000 people coming out there to events.
Right.
Very easily give 100,000 way out there.
And something too we thought about that kind of works along the same lines, because we're going to want to utilize this map for various other things as well, not just this. I met with the wayfinding guys this past week actually, and they're like, do y'all have a good map of downtown that we could put in a kiosk? And we don't. And that's part of the wayfinding system, is putting a kiosk downtown. So we want something like this that doesn't necessarily denote specific businesses and that type of stuff. but more is focused on the public facilities, public amenities. We don't want to do these little call-out flags, we're not going to do those, but I think they kind of clutter the look of things. So it's really going to be to orient the visitor or the person who's downtown in regards to where to go, and not necessarily, you know, you are here, here is coffee cup or whatever. But the listing will have to actually be changed.
I don't have as much concern about that part. On the flip side, you've got a lot of space there. You've got a lot more businesses in downtown Macon than there are in downtown Perry. I think it's gonna start looking blank.
Well, the downtown development district, which we alluded to, is fairly large. I mean, I think you could have a nice elevation with the district.
No, I'm not talking about elevation, I'm talking about the listing.
The listing on the other
Listing,
side.
the listing.
260 businesses downtown in the district.
Well,
I think.
Yeah, I think what you probably need to do is you may want to list the primary ones, but in all likelihood, tourists aren't coming to Perry to look for an attorney that has a business downtown.
Sure.
So I think, well, maybe.
Sorry, Matthew.
But, you know, think along those lines, what you may want to do is you do have most of the businesses listed in downtown. But then you also have, I think they have, you know, general categories and stuff underneath it. Well, then you'd have restaurants.
Okay.
You know, you'd have, where Walmart is. I mean, just, you know, kind of go back on what everybody's experience was on the folks who were here from Irma. You know, and say, okay, what did they look for? I mean, my understanding was Walmart was really crowded, understandably so. Okay, well, where is that? You see what I mean?
We do parks.
Yeah.
Well, see, my main concern was,
Include San Juan Boulevard, out
Right.
Publix and out that way, and even out, San Juan.
Right.
I mean, Courtney Hodges.
And the hotels and the motels, where they're that kind of stuff.
That looks good right there, but unless it includes all of Perry, but like Publix and that area, where all our businesses are, then I don't think it's worth us spending the money for.
Are you talking about this map here, like include all of Perry in the 3D map?
Not necessarily
I would like to put all
There.
there.
You can put that down that bottom corner. And they could also, Robert, where you said in those two columns there, you might just have a column listing all restaurants and all hotels, you know, and like grocery stores, you got basically 2 grocery stores in town, so. But it would give them an indication if they're looking at that, where the streets are, so it'd give a pretty good orientation.
And we could maybe even do, you know, if we're concerned about Courtney Hodges or Sam Dunn, for instance, maybe do breakout maps for those areas in particular or something, as opposed to doing, you know, the 3D maps or whatever. I mean, I think there's ways to make it work.
Because I don't think you really you need a greater Perry, like they've got a greater, and you could actually maybe have both those corridors, Sam Nunn as one, and then have a map of Perry Parkway as the other. You know, just kind of giving people indications of how they fit in.
Or just sitting on the inside of Perry Parkway,
Right.
showing where 75.
That's kind of what they've done.
Like out behind one half, and then the other half is listed in all the restaurants.
Because you'll be able to sell a whole lot more advertising, but
Uh-huh.
you don't even have Starbucks
come
on the map.
They don't need to advertise.
gotta have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We gotta get Ace in there. We gotta get, Popeyes, the old fixing up a brand new store.
They are.
You gotta get over in there. You know,
Okay.
if you,
Mark?
Would it,
Well,
oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just listening to this, I'm wondering, just throwing this out for discussion, whether the larger map on the other side is the overall community, and on the back side, maybe larger than what those maps are. Maybe half of that is a downtown map. Since most of the businesses that we're talking about are really kind of outside of downtown. So the larger map becomes the overall Perry community, and a smaller but maybe larger than what's on the Macon map is the downtown map. I'm just, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'd have to get back with the designers and all these suggestions, and concerns and see what we can do to maybe address some of those. That'd be all right? Okay. But generally, y'all seem supportive of this?
That's right.
All right, good, good.
We gotta eat, you know that.
Oh, we'll get it right. That's why I bring stuff to
You
y'all.
got it almost there, right?
Yeah. I'll take it almost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4B, 2, discussion of Brownfield grant. Smith.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor and Council, you will recall the past 2 years, I have come before this body to ask permission to assist in the preparation and submittal of a Brownfield grant through the EPA. We have not been funded either of those years, obviously, so I come back to you for a third and final time, asking for your permission to put together an FY 18, I think it's 18, funding proposal for Brownfield grant funds through the EPA. We've been working with an engineering firm on this. We think we've done a great job. Last year, after our first go around, we really were able to address a lot of the concerns they had. I think we're getting close. We're hoping the third time's a charm on this. We're doing a little bit more in-depth research into the properties. We've been able to work with some of the property owners in acquiring access agreements to their properties. So we're getting further along, and we're hoping that this year we finally get the funding. Again, this will help us bring some of these properties online that have been sitting there, that have been stagnant for a while. Getting those real estate transactions going and making some things happen on those underutilized possible brownfield properties. Any questions or concerns? Yeah.
I'd say go for it. Cost of doing it is incorporated in the grant, so.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Item 4B3, Site 360 proposal. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor and Council. Apologies. As was briefly discussed at the last pre-council meeting, we didn't have a lot of time at that pre-council meeting to try to squeeze in discussion topics there. But we have been presented with an opportunity through Georgia Power and through Next Site 360, which is a retail location consulting firm out of Birmingham, Alabama. They are offering to essentially subsidize the services of Next Site 360 to Georgia communities that wish to participate. What this firm does is they'll come in, they'll assess your community, they'll take a look at your market, and they will help market your community, and they will help put together packages and meet with possible developers, conferences and expos and trade shows. Basically be an advocate for your community and trying to locate national brands for the most part in your community. This was made available to us last month, and I received a detailed proposal for the city of Perry. The annual cost on this would be $19,500. And at first when I got this, I was a bit concerned regarding a couple of the stipulations that were shown in the agreement or in the proposal that they provided us. Particularly, they were actually requiring a 3-year contract, and I just know with this group that's pretty much a non-starter. So I was able to negotiate a situation where we'd be able to work on a 1-year contract for the same amount, and this contract would be focused on providing retail location services to exit 138 and 136, exit 135, 134, and Perry Parkway. Really what I'm coming to y'all tonight for is advice, if you will, or preferences from y'all in regards to how you might want to proceed. I can tell you at this point in time, I'm kind of in a situation where I'd like to take a wait-and-see approach and see how this works for some other communities that have already signed on, because I still do have some concerns associated with the possibility of pursuing this. Most notably, if you have a number of communities, say even communities in Middle Georgia, maybe even some here in Houston County, that are clients of this service, when they're out there marketing your community, when they're proposing site locations, that type of thing, we have a lot of the same sites as, say, Community A. And if they're looking at Community A in Perry, how do they choose where to send this one prospect? How do they choose where to locate this Kohl's, for instance? And I haven't been able to really get a good idea on how they do that, how they prioritize communities and how they prioritize sites and locations. So that gives me a little bit of concern. And then another concern that I had was the types, and looking at what they've done for other communities at this point in time. They're attracting the Dollar Generals, they're attracting the Firehouse Subs, they're attracting the Starbucks. Yeah, they're attracting the type of national brands that we're already getting here in Perry. So I question to a certain extent the value of the services they might be providing. That being said, it is a significant discount for their full suite of services. Some of the technology and some of the data they have access to is phenomenal. They actually have some stuff called mobile mapping where they can, it's kind of Big Brother-ish, but they actually follow people's cell phones that live in Perry around, and they can see where they spend money and where they work and that type of stuff. So if we're looking to attract, say, a Target, we can bet, look, you have these 5,000 people that regularly shop at the Target in Warner Robins. How about opening a location here? You know, because you can show that, you can prove that. And if the city were looking to actually get some of these data sources, that type of stuff, it would be at significant cost, well above what they're offering to us here. So there are some inherent benefits in this partnership. Because it is with Georgia Power, I wanted to bring this before y'all to get your input and see what you thought. Questions or comments?
So this is the only reference one they got, but you're showing that the national brand, the Firehouse Sub and Dollar General, these are the only one that they've been representing?
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. They have worked with basically all the big national brands. And a lot of the work they do is in like shopping centers and shopping malls and that type of stuff, and locating, you know, national brands and those types of things. So, you know, I think Perry has done a good job of tracking those already. I don't think we're going to have a big shopping center type deal open anytime soon. So, you know, I don't know.
What's the estimated time? Okay, say they're going to target someone. How long will it take them to collect data to let us know that it'll be good for us to bring this type business in here? What do you understand?
Yeah, they could probably have that stuff to you the next week after you sign a contract. That's my understanding. I've spoken with a couple of communities that signed on. They get all the stuff to you quickly because they have the data there. They just have to run reports and that type of stuff, compile it. It's something that's for your community.
I would recommend that we take a look and see on this. We can always join this at a later date. There's no pressure that says we have to do it, and I think that our economic development group is doing a very good job of reaching out to a number of different organizations and everything to bring businesses here, so I'm not sure this is something that we need to engage in right now. I know their information is a little more detailed, but
It's very good.
I'm not sure that it's going to bring that many more businesses here.
Again, that's considered a location. You know what I mean, like you were saying, that for to decide that we got to make sure we got a location for the person to bring the people. So I feel like too, we need to wait a while and see what happens.
Yeah, and this program, this is just a pilot program that, you know, Georgia Power is putting out there right now, so.
And to that point, Mr. Walker, you can see, and I'm sure y'all seen, electric cities, a few of the EMCs, and a number of other organizations that have a similar role as Georgia Power, utilities, and that type of stuff, are starting to either offer the same type of service at a fee, of course, or they're partnering with other similar consulting firms and doing the same thing. So I think that's kind of the hot thing right now amongst utility companies to try and provide the service to their partners and their clients. Anybody else?
I think we need to wait. I'm just, with the information that you've given us, I don't think it would be enough for me to make a decision to go forward anyway. You know, with Centerville and Warner Robins being our neighbors, and from what you said initially, I can't see how they would make the decision as to whether it was us or our neighbors. So right now, I'm just not interested.
That's the big thing, Ms. Grace, is how do they prioritize those sites and communities if they have all these clients in the same general area offering the same types of sites and things? And I've been
You
able
yourself
to.
said your inclination was to wait and see, so go with that as well.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Item 4B4, Georgia Florida tailgate party.
Mayor and council, Mayor Pro Tem and council. You will recall at a meeting, I guess it was early August, late July, I came before this body requesting permission to move forward with a downtown tailgate event. The permission was granted, although there was one stipulation where it was a non-BYOB event. You would have to have a vendor on site to provide alcoholic beverages. After some due diligence and talking with community members and partners and that type of stuff, it was deemed that that would be an unviable situation. That if people were going to come downtown and watch a football game or something, they wanted to be able to bring their own beverage, and they didn't want to have to sit there and spend money and all that type of stuff. With that being said, I come before you tonight asking for reconsideration in regards to the whole prohibition of coolers or BYOB type of events here in the city of Perry and for City of Perry events. I think that with what is going on in similar communities and with what is going on with mayor and council, I mean, you just heard Kevin, there's a huge desire in the community to, you heard there's a huge desire in the community to have more events and that type of thing, and I think that's a direction the city's moving in. And also the development of a dedicated event venue space out there with the amphitheater at Heritage Park. I think it would be prudent to go ahead and explore the possibility of allowing BYOB type events here in the city of Perry. And I think that this tailgate event could be kind of a litmus test, as I wrote in the memo, in regards to how that's done and how that would work and that type of thing. So throwing this out there for y'all, I think it's definitely worth considering. And you know, I completely understand if this is not the direction y'all want to go, but I do think it is worth discussing at least.
I'm having a little problem with this simply because we just had an event at the park.
Yes, ma'am.
The music festival, and we didn't allow coolers.
Yes.
And we had to have a vendor that sold alcoholic beverage. And I can't see how we could justify doing one, bring your own bottle, and then that one that says no. It's still a community-wide event.
Well, this, only thing, this is the start of, to get prepared for that event next year. Because I think that we're gonna move it to Heritage Park. And I think there'll be a series of music festivals out there probably next summer. And we need to probably move to that venue, and I would say that we would, let's crack the door open and see what kind of problems we have, and then as we move forward to events later on in the year, then, because there's gonna be a couple of them. And I understand your concern, because I was the person who was like, we can't do that. But I think that if this is far enough away from that event, if we start saying we're gonna look at what we can or cannot do in those events, I think this would be a good starting. It's going to be a small group and see how we can control it, especially around the glass and stuff like that. That's where my concern is as we move forward to next year. That's just.
I heard what you said.
I understand.
That's all. I'm still not in agreement with it as yet. I mean, because like I said, we just had an event that you couldn't do it, and if it's not acceptable for that group, why is it acceptable for this group?
We got to start it somewhere. That's the only thing I say.
I'm just asking.
Somewhere we've got to start the process. This is a relatively small function. It's going to be in the downtown area. Let's see how we can manage it. We might find out we can't manage it, but I don't want to do it with 2,000 people rather than 200 people. That's my only thing. But I think we can, if it turns out we can manage it, the police department feels like it's something they can live with, and we'll move forward, as Robert said, with all of them, not selective.
I'll take it under advisement.
Okay.
I think we should, if this is going to take place, I think we need to let the public be aware. Because no matter what the found, they say, it's not something to something that you don't get a feedback. So, well, at this point, and like you saying, good point, we got to break that somewhere. This might be a good start, but we need to get the information out there and let people know what we we're suggesting or we're
Right.
considering it.
Well, I think we need to make sure that they understand that we're moving it to next year too, because we're looking at how we use Heritage Park as an amphitheater, that people can bring their picnics and they can bring their own beverages and that kind of stuff, and with all events out there.
Is there any way we can get reference points from other cities that already got a park set up like this here with an amphitheater in it, and so that way to see how they control it or how they do it or something like that, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because I'm like Ms. Bonner, we need to make sure that everybody aware of what we're doing and when we move forward, because we want to keep humming it in our city.
I agree, totally.
Sure, I can absolutely see how other cities are doing this.
I mean, Chastain Park's a perfect example in Atlanta, because all their concerts will bring your own bottle. And so,
Okay, that's right, that's a good point.
So, I mean, it's being done in, well, like Swanee, I
Right.
talked to the mayor in Swanee, they do it every Thursday or third Thursday or something like that. They'll have a couple of thousand people that come and they all bring their own food and own beverages. So it's being done in a number of different municipalities that we can get the data for. The only thing, you know, I think the real reason we talked about not doing it previously when he came to us was the fact that we weren't going to do it at the music festival. And so we said, okay, but now that we start planning for next year, we ought to start looking at ways to implement small pieces of this.
Well, how far this off, I mean, goes for the cake place?
It's going to be end of October.
October 28th.
Question, is this something we would allow at only one specific venue or one specific park, or would it be all over, citywide, regardless of where a function is being held?
Well, I think it would come with any other type of alcohol request. I mean, I don't think we do it out at Rozier,
Right.
potentially, I mean, that's a totally different thing. But if you're having a Heritage where you've got set up as an amphitheater type arrangement, or a downtown event where you have been serving alcohol previously, I mean, it could come up that your restaurants downtown are not real happy about it.
That's right, well,
You got,
don't get a
you
feedback.
got, you got things that you got to try it and see how it works.
What you saying, Mr. Manning, you just think, you clapping your hands over there.
Well, since you asked, my recommendation would be you might want to try it, but you run it out at Heritage Park. Get some portalets out there, you know, we mow the grass, you know, like, I guess it's pretty successful. Was that business challenge thing they had out there and all that kind of stuff?
Business battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to try it, I would not recommend having, and you may remember I was a strong proponent when this first came up, but I would not recommend it for a lot of concerns that you talked about in the downtown. I would not recommend it over at Rotary Centennial Park, wouldn't recommend it any of the other, you know, city parks. You know, I think that it could very well be a function we wind up and we need to support once Heritage Park gets up and going. And if you wanted to give a trial, you know, basis, I don't see any problem, you know, if you went out and had it out. Particularly since I think this is an afternoon game.
3:30, yes, sir.
So it should be done by now. But if you're not interested in doing that, then my recommendation would be you don't do anything with it until Heritage Park is up and ready to go.
That just doesn't alleviate your issue with your downtown merchants and competition with them. So, and you are changing venues to try it.
Can we talk about the Heritage Park? As long as we let the public know, I have no problem with it, get it out there.
It's gonna be Heritage, crack the door.
Oh, you looking at me? Well,
I am anyway.
So am I.
Anybody? What's your opinion?
I'm still reluctant to say yes, but long as it's not gonna be downtown, I don't agree that it should be downtown, period. Because we're affecting, their livelihood down there, folks that sell alcohol. Nothing down where we were on the weekend, in of our little parks around here. Now, I'm willing to close my eyes and agree to the new park, Heritage, but nothing downtown, nothing in this downtown area. Because I mean, folks like Rusty make their living off, part of their living off alcohol. Why would you want to do it downtown that will affect their business? I'm just saying. No, I wouldn't agree to any of that. But Heritage, I can reluctantly,
You can bend a little bit.
I
for
can
it.
bend a little bit since it's not in the downtown area.
I think, going back with my, I think one of the things that we have to keep in consideration is that we do have munches, and we gotta keep that in consideration of what we're doing, because like Ms. Brown said, they got livelihood, they're gonna be coming at us, like, why y'all doing it, knowing that we doing this, so we have to make sure we keep an open challenge, and what we do will affect them to that point.
I don't have any problem with going out to Heritage at all, because realistically, that's what we want to start people thinking about that venue is.
Right.
This is a family type thing that
Right.
you can come out and have picnics and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And, you know, like you said, the chamber event was, you know, well received out there. They had a whole lot more people show up there than I thought. I mean, when I pulled in there, that parking lot was full, and I thought, my goodness. So,
You had a good time, I understand.
they did.
They can't move this out there,
What's that?
Florida Georgia.
Out at Heritage Park?
That's what we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Gonna go there.
That's where I wanted to be, that's where it'll be.
Definitely don't want downtown. See
Does
what
that
can,
work for
They
you?
might have
It does.
enough, might have enough shade to put the blow-up screens in back to Washington.
You're right. Gonna be a plus.
Yeah. No, that's great. That, I mean, I was indifferent in regards to where it would be held. But I, you know, back in the merchants deal, they were actually supportive of this. But if that's where y'all want to have it, that's where we'll have it. That sounds good to me.
Or you can have it downtown and let them go back and back.
But again, to the original point.
Well, I see that as the two
Right.
choices.
Yes, yes.
But, you know, I guess, you know, many times when we have downtown, we bring competition in for those businesses down there too, by bringing other vendors in and putting them on the street. So, I mean, it might be a much better place as long as we can control the fire ants.
We'll start right now, getting it.
Yeah, really. Okay.
So the
Anything else?
consensus is that we are going to try it at Heritage Park, if that's agreeable with the promoting it.
Great. Thank y'all.
Item 4C, Community Development Department, Mr. Wood, status of dealing with vehicles.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, thank you. I wanted to just raise for discussion some concerns regarding the enforcement of some sections of our ordinance relating to inoperable vehicles, abandoned vehicles. There are two sections, two parts of our code, the city code, that address this issue. Chapter 19 deals with nuisances, and there's a provision about inoperative vehicles and how they're defined. And then we also have adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, which has terminology for inoperable vehicles, motor vehicles, and from that standpoint has a definition, and then refers to the city code for the actual enforcement aspect of it. The current provisions in our code talk about providing notice to the property owner, and then at some point, if the vehicle is not addressed in whatever fashion appropriate, then the city has the authority to tow it. And then that raises questions under state law of how, what has to be done to be able to legally tow a vehicle and what happens to it afterwards. Tracy Hester, a building official, is here. He's had some experience with this in Albany, where, if I'm not mistaken, They've towed vehicles in the past, and they still have some vehicles sitting that they can't do anything with. So, and I did send some information over to the city attorney's office, and I want to let you know that it wasn't until Friday afternoon, so I don't know if Matt's had a chance to do anything, and that's my fault for not getting it there sooner, but just wanted to raise some concerns with you for discussion. And may or may not resolve things tonight, I just wanted to get it on the table.
We've been moving cars for as long as I've been on council. Why all of a sudden does our rules not apply?
Well, I think the question is, have you been doing it legally and without in a situation where you don't run the risk of being sued?
Have not had a repercussion yet, as I know of.
Well, maybe not, but that doesn't mean that it won't start now.
Doesn't mean it won't storm tomorrow either, but, I mean, you can't.
I mean, we'll certainly be glad to find somebody to tow a vehicle. But I'm just saying,
I believe
we
for
want to
price,
do
I'd be
it,
glad to tow it.
want to do it legally under state law.
Well,
and not run-
you're saying our law's not, we hadn't been applying going by state law?
I don't know if we have.
You don't
But
know
there's,
that we have
there's
either.
an awful lot of work that needs to be done to legally tow a vehicle and then dispose of it. That I'm not sure that we've been doing. I don't know because I haven't been here long enough. But, you know, I
Well, I'm
want
just going
to,
by past experience, we haven't had, to my knowledge, anybody to sue us or anybody to complain about the way we were handling it.
and it may be like that from now on. I just want to, I'm just raising the question with you all
Good point.
that
Good point.
there's potential out there, and do you want us to move forward this way or not?
I think you gotta look at it, is this question.
And I've been able to look at it just enough to get up to speed, but not to
So,
assess.
do we need to possibly just postpone this for 2 weeks so it gives you a better chance to look at that? Would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but I think what my advice would be is give us an opportunity to assess the ordinances and determine if our ordinances are in fact legal under state law.
I always feel better having the city attorney's opinion, so we're fine to wait and allow him the opportunity to do that.
I'm gonna be.
And we are, our process right now is to post the vehicle, and hopefully that resolves the situation. If not, then we get the vehicle owner's name from the police department and send a letter. We've gone that far. The next step would be for us to tow it, and we have not gone that step yet, so.
It has to be in the public right of way. You cannot go on public grounds.
Private
Well,
property.
Well, there are certain provisions under state law where where it can be towed from private property. But again, the question is, does the city want to take on the liability or potential liability of towing a vehicle that, one, I don't know if we have a place to store it, the insurance issues if it gets vandalized while in city possession. If nobody ever claims it, what do we do with it? And what steps do we have to go through to actually dispose of it? Or are we gonna be stuck with a vehicle that we can't do anything with and we have to keep forever and ever? So I think there's some questions that need to be, we'll continue doing the violation posting and notifying of the owners and hopefully get things resolved, but if it's not, the next step is towing, and that's where I think there's some questions that need to be answered.
Okay. Anything else?
What I would suggest for the city attorney is to concentrate on item 4 on the memo. Don't worry about the other type of stuff. But that, on private property after the 30th, going back to Mr. Hunt's concern. And then check and see, well, what is the city's potential liability and expense? Because I see this as a bigger issue. Okay, for example, what about vehicles that don't have tags on them?
Yep, that's all. explain the definition of left unattended. I mean, if somebody owns the car that lives in that house and it's not tagged, it's not unattended, it's purposely sitting there.
Well, and I guess my question is, from an enforcement standpoint, is how do we determine for a period of 30 days that it hasn't been attended? I mean, we could go out there and see at 9 o'clock this morning, nobody was standing next to it or sitting in it. And then tomorrow, when we go out, nobody's standing next to it or sitting in it, but it may have been moved and then brought right back to the same place. So I think there's some questions I have as well as in the definitions and how we go about enforcing and making a clear case that something has been unattended or is inoperable or whatever the terminology is that we use. But again, just wanted to raise the issue that there's some questions that I think can be addressed.
I agree. Like, I don't know, like I say, I don't know what unattended means. If it's abandoned, it's a different definition altogether.
Right. Just because there may be questions, what kind of private property are we talking about? A Walmart parking lot or someone's front yard?
Both. It could be, I mean, we see where there are vehicles that are potentially abandoned or unattended or potentially inoperable, sitting in people's yards, sitting in hotel parking lots. It could be Walmart parking lot, any private property essentially.
I would suggest you focus on residential property. Because most of like the commercial property owners, they'll do the deal under number 3.
Right.
They're gonna say, get that stuff out of it. If there is a commercial site that's not doing that, then we can come back in. I don't mean to speak for Mr. Hunt, but I think
I think you're right.
But I think his major concern is, this has come up to y'all a number of times. Are these vehicles that are, for lack of a better term, up on blocks, they're sitting there, they got the weeds growing over them, they're discolored. I mean, it's pretty obvious with it, but we do want to be careful. I don't know how many of y'all remember, but several years back, it wasn't with vehicles, but we had a deal about with code enforcement and went in and tore down a house.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and they said, oh, you didn't give enough proper notice, because the owner came back and said, well, I had stuff in there and I wasn't able to get it. So anyway, we had to do a settlement on that. So I think it's a smart move to just make sure we're set in getting it taken care of, so we can go and address it, because it is a problem citywide.
And if I could, and in fairness to Mr. Woods, I brought up the budgetary issue to this, is if we get into removing vehicles from someone's private property, we burden that expense somehow. We, the city of Perry, would burden that expense, whether we do it ourselves or whether we hire a wrecker firm, and someone has to store that vehicle through this process that the state has established to be able to dispense with a junk vehicle. And that could get very, very expensive, very, very quick if we got aggressive in that manner, because there's hundreds of dilapidated or inoperable vehicles sitting out there. So before I took on that responsibility, I wanted to make sure that Mr. Woods and the council was aware of the budgetary problems, because having gone through that with the city of Albany, we wound up with a 2 or 3 acre lot full of cars that probably half of them are still sitting there after 10 years. We burden that cost at the city of Albany to pay for that storage. So did not want you to be in that process, if at all possible. So.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 4D1, hotel motel tax review analysis.
Good evening. In your package is the first few pages of analysis that we received from third-party tax resources that we contracted with through GMA to perform this audit for the period of March 2014 to February 2017. In their initial review of returns, it states that there's very little to
suggests in this underreporting, and it's probably due to the room inventory has simply reached the point that most of the months the city is overbuilt, and only the newer branded properties are benefiting from the earnings of growth. It did state that it was just like the general overview, but it did point out that the city's administration of the tax continues to be superb as in the previous years. One of the best that they've seen in the state. We were able to provide them the past 36 months of all the returns if we did not locate, and I think it's probably one or two, we were able to provide an explanation as to why we thought we didn't have it. Again, this goes back to the procedures that you put in place to help us in collecting the taxes and as being as graceful as we are for those that are delinquent. However, they also state that we should take a look at our ordinance, and in reviewing the ordinance on the administrative end, that still seems to be one potential conflict that we have, and that's with the interest rates. The interest rates currently is prime plus 3%, and that we have to compute on a monthly basis compounded. Our current ordinance state that is 1% per year. So I will be providing the copy of the model ordinance to our city attorney to review, so we can take a look and see if there's, make sure that we are in compliance. A few months back, we did make an adjustment for the state because we still had that 10, it was 30 days, and the second was the tax rate. I think it was not correct, or the section of the code that it was referring to. We did get those changes made, but the interest rate seems to be still in there. In further review of the returns, they noted that 70% of the tax was coming from 7 providers. Those providers were Quality Inn, My Hotel, Best Western, Comfort Inn, Hampton Inn, Holiday Inn, and Ramada Inn. And although there's no effect on the revenue received, it felt like the older and distressed properties appears to be netting and not claiming the non-taxable rents. RV parks, 3 of the RV parks seem to raise some concern in reporting high levels of the non-taxable rent. And currently we're working with code enforcement and Brian's department to monitor those locations to sort of see what's the clientele is like. And if you can probably tell just by cruising through there, not stopping and asking any questions, but just cruising through to see who's staying, the staying, and if they're staying for extended periods of time. They also stated that, in bringing that up, they were stating that experience has shown that such locations is that persons traveling in vehicles are not likely to stay longer than 30 days unless it was through at a resort or community that had some type of resort. And I didn't think that was the case here, particularly if consistently throughout the year. So that was the general overview of the report. However, some of the other, they did provide some information on the revenue management service, where it's through a third-party administrator and it's web-based. They could assist us in, or really take over the administration and collecting of the tax. However, this is all or none. Each hotel would have to sign up for it, and not that some could pay online through this service and some through us. we would be handing that over to them. However, the cost for doing so is $900 per provider per month. Per year. I'm sorry. So, in speaking with Mr. Gilmore, we had talked about it a little bit. However, it's still your decision if we want to go that route. But we was thinking that since we've done such a great job in collecting as we have in the past, that we would just continue and not outsource that particular service out. But something that you all can guide us on if you would like to look into it further.
Yep.
It's good the way we are.
I would agree.
Oh, yeah. Any other questions about the report?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4D2, discussion of Clean Air Coalition project, Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you. Council members, in your packet is a memo from me following up on our August 14th, 2017 work session discussion relative to possible projects that we could work with the Clean Air Coalition. And remember, we had that initial discussion. And I gave you a listing, or attached was a listing of some of the potential projects and then what the city's experience is with them. And if you desire to proceed with that, and the administration recommends doing the electric vehicle chargers and locate them downtown, each unit costs approximately $10,800 to construct and around $600 a year to operate.
Council?
I'm in favor of that. Don't believe we have enough electric cars to recoup our money anytime within my lifetime.
I think if we were in a heavy urban area where people were utilizing that, the electric cars are not cars that you really see making long trips and parking in downtown areas 4 hours to recharge and all that stuff. I don't think it's something we ought to venture into at this point in time.
What about, I guess, if we look at it from the point of view of, I guess if I own an electric car and I got to Perry and I need you to get a recharge, I guess that's something we have to consider, you know, I mean, like you said, might not be feasible at this point, but that's something, I guess, like you said, more and more electric cars get on the road, I guess we gotta set up stations where they can get charged up and keep moving.
Well, they can use 120 volts, plug them into their hotel room. I mean, you can do that. This is, I would take as a fast charger. It's a quick charge. It's to get them, most people will plug them in when they go home or those type things.
You don't see a lot of electric cars go long distance stalls.
No. I mean, there are some, I looked at, when this came up, I checked a couple of hotels in Atlanta, and they have those stations, but they say they're just not utilized. And the one I stay at on a regular basis, I've never seen an electric car charging there. In fact, it's quite faded out.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Assuming that's it. No.
That's a no, sir.
Item 4D3, consider adjustment for ESG operations incorporated contract to add additional employees.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Council members, in your packet or on your board packet is also a memo from me. And attached to that is a memo from Mr. Bodie talking about the need to increase some additional staff through the ESG contract, particularly to take care of water meter requests. I provided you some data relative to that. The recommendation from administration would be that council approves the adjustment of the contract for the additional 2 staff people with the caveat that it is only used for meter servicing and installation, unless there's some dire emergency to shift somebody someplace else. We can do that within the existing income coming in, so we won't have to increase the customer service. We are starting to move into 2 areas that are causing these problems. The first one is we are starting to see a significant falling behind on installing the meters themselves, for the contractors or whatever the case may be. The second thing, which kind of contributes to that, is went back and also did an analysis relative to, for the last several years, probably about 10 years or so, about regular service calls and water service calls. We had a high and they've dropped off and everything. The sewer stuff is still okay, but I noticed the water ones are starting to shoot up now, which is a function of age with our system. And, we are putting more water out, we're getting more people on and all that type of stuff. So I think that this would be a worthwhile function. If for some reason it doesn't work or doesn't seem to be cost effective, then we could adjust the contract. after a year's time. So administration recommends to you to okay this adjustment on the contract.
Council? Okay. No, we have, Item 4D4, consider the names for Third Street and J.C.'s Park sites. Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Council members, you have in your packet a listing, you may remember this was handed out to you before, about the various names that came back from the survey response on the parks, or two of the possible park sites, Third Street Park and the J.C. Park site. And so my question to you is, you don't necessarily need an answer tonight, but would like you to be thinking about, okay, what do we want to go with for the naming? Because I think there's not an immediate rush for it, but I think the sooner we can go in, kind of like the advantage, for example, at Heritage Park, when we haven't done any, or some construction out there, but it already has a name. Everybody with me? So, people start thinking about it, they're kind of aware of what's going on and all that kind of stuff. And I think there would be an advantage for these two locations. I want to emphasize that you are not bound by the results of the survey. For example, even though it came in second place, at least the manager is never much of a fan of Paradise as a name for one of our parks. You see what I mean? But you did have an opportunity for people who are interested to provide some type of response, and I would suggest you think about that, and if it's agreeable with you, we'll have it on your next work session for you to consider what you'd like to name.
Everybody agree with that?
Jordan will play.
That's what the statutes. Oh, yeah. Oh, we're naming the landfill out there?
Item 5 is council member items. Mr. Walker.
No. I have one item, Mayor Pro Tem. On 1608 Marshall Circle, there's a little depression, I guess, in the concrete in the road there that's caused some buildup of water when it rains. The resident was concerned about mosquito buildup and so forth. Just passing that along, see if we can investigate that issue. That's all I have.
Okay, this is to Kevin. Kevin, I sent you some information about a grant that I was hoping you could look into. Can you give me an update on whether it's something that we can use?
Which grant are you referring to?
Can you get it?
Business?
Just a sec. For health infrastructure.
Still doing some research on that. That's fitness equipment, outdoor gym area.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. King? Just Mr. Gilmore?
Yes. One quick thing. At least I think it's quick. The council has set a policy, which I think is a very good policy, that for the recreation programs, they need to support themselves. For example, the football and those type of programs, rather than using taxpayer dollars for them. Run through, we do this on a regular basis at the end of the fiscal year about an analysis going over. Mr. Dye's been advised about that. And some of the programs do okay, some of them do not. But one of the ones that I would like the council to consider a possible adjustment on is for our basketball program. And what the adjustment on that would be is that the city will pay and pick up the, for lack of a better term, security costs that are involved with that program. So we're not talking about uniforms or officials, all that type of stuff. That'll still have to be a program expense. But we found that we're in a need, and this could affect other sports as well. Right now, it just happens to be in basketball. that we do need to, on occasion, have some law enforcement officers at the court. And I think that that would be advantageous on something that the city would pay directly for, rather than saying that has to be a cost for the participants. But I want to run that past you and see if you are agreeable with that or not. If not, it's factored in, and that will cause an increase, for the program. And some of the program costs we're talking about fairly significant, increase, like what, 20, 30%?
It's been routinely, and the sport we're talking about is basketball. Basketball's going to be coming up. We've already announced some registration, and we had to adjust some registration fees because this is the third season that's been under my tenure, and all the last previous two were about 10,000. By the end of the league, we're over. And when we went back and audited the costs, it came to bodies, it came to security, scorekeeping, and officials. Those numbers are not only the average I've seen, but every year they're right on par. We average about 330 players, we average X amount of games, and it's one of those trends that have been set for quite a while now. So if we don't decide some things like Mr. Goodwin talking about, you want to be talking about $40 fee increase. It's going to be a hit for some. That's the only way to break even. It's not a buying too many fancy baskets. It's nothing like that at all. It's literally having the bodies that's required to have those games. And we don't want to deviate from your practice, but like the city manager said, I'm extremely in favor of the philosophy of breaking even. I mean, that's a pretty good trend. A lot of trends nationally are making 8%. And I just want to know if our position right now with our size, we can't try to make a revenue much less.
Now, the fees will still be going up. I don't want to give any false impressions that's not going to happen. But I do think for that one particular cost, that it'd be in the city's best interest just to pick that up itself.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with that. We don't have security for football.
No, and really the reason basketball is you need security, it's an enclosed environment. You're in a gym. There's not, tempers tend to not flare as much when you're outside and you can kind of walk it off. It's hard to walk it off when you got to go through the bleachers and out the hallway. No, we don't require it on the others. If we have let's say playoff games or something big, we'll talk to dispatch and police force. But basketball, we have somebody indoors and we get to those games. And it helps. It helps.
But I want to emphasize, this would apply to all our sports. If it's not focused just on this one sport. Because, well, right now that's where it is. Unfortunately, I don't think that's where it's going to stop. That's going to roll over into some of the others and all that kind of stuff. For example, just as soccer gets more popular, more competitive, because that's usually what seems to boil down to. Right. How competitive the Guardians take it, not so much the player.
You're right.
And then just, and what the response is. And like Kevin said, well, they're all closed in and hot gym and everything. Okay, fine. But, when I was coaching in soccer, we had a couple of kind of close calls, and that's when most of them don't know what's going on. So, I think that would be, if you all are agreeable, that would be a good process for us to start for that one course.
But I was in basketball, you're right. Need some security there.
And that's probably, if you recall, back in the summer, we did some slight adjustments with the adult softball league, but it was the adults. And, it's a little different. This is the first one since that action that we're talking about, that is our league. And this is from ages 5 to 15. So it's honest. I'm kind of, I'd rather break it like a Band-Aid and let's do it or don't do it.
Okay. Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Item 6 is department heads. Chief Barker.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, one item. I think I've sent you all an email already, but I'll be leaving hopefully tomorrow morning to drive to Smyrna to pick up the new rescue truck that you all graciously approved for us. Miss Brenda has given me a nice check to take to those folks, and Once we go up, we inspect it, look at it, we'll hand them some money, and then we'll drive the truck back. My goal is to have it sitting outside here at about 4 o'clock, so as you guys come in for your council meeting tomorrow night, or your pre-council, it'll be there for you to look at, and you can kind of, if you want to drive it around for a little while, that's fine too. It'll be out there for you to look at anyway, so that'll be tomorrow.
Is this where I get my training at tomorrow?
Wherever you need. We're here for you.
Chief Lynn?
Yes, sir, Mayor Pro Tem. One thing that I need to brief y'all on, at Mr. Gilmore's request, we applied this year like we do every year for a COPS hiring grant, or different, sometimes it's different forms, and this particular year, it's a COPS hiring grant, that if we were to be approved and the awards made in October, then they would fully fund 3 officers, you know, for the first year. And of course, and all that subject to y'all's approval. Which really at the top is my best of background. We received last week what they're calling a grant application, new opportunity for additional consideration. And so the part for consideration is certification of illegal immigrant cooperation. Basically, they're asking 2 things. That we permit access to anybody who, to the Department of Homeland Security, to anybody that's an illegal alien that's housed in our jail. And B, that we notify them prior to their release. Well, we don't have a jail, and that may be obvious to y'all, but we do use Houston County Jail. That is already their practice. And so my request, if y'all approve, is that we're authorized to sign this and submit it back with the statement to them that we don't operate the jail, but that is the practice of the jail. My concern is that if we don't submit it, then they just say, okay, you don't get extra points and consideration, and then we're kind of, you know, put to the bottom of the heap. We made the short list last year, but we didn't get an award. And after reviewing that with Mr. Gilmore, he thought it was best that bring it before this body and see what your wishes are. So. Yes.
Help me understand that. They would finance the salaries only, or are they gonna finance automobile for them, uniforms, guns, everything?
Yes, sir. The grant is salary plus some benefits, and it's a phased, you know, out over years thing. But that's down the road, and that would come back to y'all to accept or deny at the time if we got awarded. But that is the grant we applied for. Yes.
But all you're asking us for is permission to sign that letter that says that's the practice of our jail.
Yes.
So that it's part of your application.
We've made the application. They've come back with this as a supplemental, and the way, after reading it and everything, what I'm assuming, maybe incorrectly, but I don't think so, is that the agencies that have applied to turn this form back in get an extra point or 2 and stay near the top, and the ones that don't drop down in the process, and that's it. But if the grant were to be awarded, we'd come back to the council with all the details, and then y'all can decide whether it's good deal.
Thank you.
That's a sign.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was it. That's all I have to do. Thank you.
Smith. Saturday, October 21st, 8:30 a.m., Johnny Noble Dixon Park in New Hope. The City of Perry Housing Team will be hosting the fall neighborhood cleanup. As always, it's going to go from 8:30 to about 12:30. We'll fan out in teams, clean up the neighborhood, and then have a cookout afterwards for everyone that participated. Always a great event. Got flyers out here if you want to grab some on the way out. Thank you.
Good.
Nothing tonight.
Mom?
Yes, just real quick, if I can get out of this table. Just want to let y'all know through the Hurricane Irma, I did try to keep everyone as updated as possible. Through our Facebook page was our main venue for that. And I think we did a pretty good job. We reached over 50,000 people just during that short amount of time, and we had over 20,000 people engaged with the post. So what that means is people were liking it, commenting on it, sharing it with their friends, and I think that's probably the most we've ever had. So I think that shows that it's a great place to communicate to our community about what's going on, what they need to know and what's most important. So just want to let you know that.
Anything else? She moved over.
I'd just like to let you all know that the customer service manager position has been filled. She will start tomorrow. Ms. Valerie Sanders here from Perry. In future council meetings, we'll try and get her as well as the 2 other technicians in the accounting area in more formal introduction.
Anything else?